The BeThinkAct innovation process model actually has a very long history, dating back to the mid-1980s when William was the head of innovation management at the Stanford Research Institute. So William, tell us about those early days and what was it that drove you to develop an innovation process in the first place?
Seems like a long time ago, actually. In my work at Stanford Research Institute, SRI International, my job was to bring together clients and internal engineers, marketing experts, and so on major innovation projects of developing new strategies, sometimes for 10 years into the future, developing a new line of products, developing new marketing strategies, improving quality, changing a process. And with all of those, I was needing some kind of a process that would make it easier to manage the projects, make it easy for us to collaborate across disciplines with the people that were from the outside, from the company, the client, the internal people that we had.
All the scientists, executives, marketing. You were really collaborating with a wide range
of
people.
So I said, what is the actual process that seems to be most effective on these projects? I began to look at, well, what are the innovation process models that are found in academics or in corporate or in scientific literature, and studied a lot of those and realized they had 5 common ingredients. That was, you have to set a goal and intention, you have to analyze what the issues are, you have to generate some creative ideas, you have to decide on the best solution, and you have to implement it. And I said, well, that sounds fine. But over time, as I really experienced what it took to produce innovative results, something was missing.
And to also work across the disciplines and functions. How do you coordinate all of that and get a cohesion?
Because one of the difficulties was, well, the engineers had one process for innovating, the marketing people had another process for innovating, and how to bring all that together in a coherent way. And so somehow there was more to it. And I really struggled to find out what's the missing pieces that I know are happening.
Now, I also want to bring out that William has a master's in humanistic psychology, and so he always has his eye on the human side as well. And that's another thing you were very in tune with there at Stanford, was the human element. And you were, so committed to making sure you had everyone involved in the process, and you recognized that that wasn't always the case. It was sometimes very challenging to get everybody truly involved in the innovation process you were engaged in.
We would say now there was an art to it, the human side, and that what the normal innovation process models had was the discipline side, the more technical side, let's call it. But there was something else about what really brought strong teams together to surpass what they could expect out of themselves and so on. It wasn't until I actually left SRI, and very soon after I had an engagement to teach a class at the Stanford University Graduate School of Business.
It's called Creativity.
It's called Creativity in Business. Michael Ray had developed the program originally, was taking a quarter off. And I had a co-instructor with me. And during that time, she brought in the notion of the what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. And the journey that people would take when they were looking for something new or different in their lives.
So she was really introducing you to some very classical literature about the heroic journey.
It's right, the Odyssey, the Iliad, even the Wizard of Oz could be like that. This was, by the way, her name was Lorna Catford. I always have a great appreciation for her.
So I was going to say, so here they are teaching a creativity course, but you can see what they're doing in the background, right? They make the students work on a project so they can actually work on these things.
And during that time, I read a book. It was called The Way to Shambhala by Edwin Birdbaum. And in that, he talked about how in all of these kinds of heroic literatures, there was a common plot line. And the plot line went something like this. It says, you're on a quest and you come to some impassable river, maybe even guarded by a demon. And the first thing that happens is that the hero or the heroine withdraws from that difficulty and prays for some boon or some blessing or some empowerment to help them get through what they're going to have to face. And then they would, in a sense, go to the demon's cave and call the demon out for battle to really see, I want to, like do it on their territory. And then the battle would ensue, and this would happen, and this and that, back and forth, until at some point the hero or the heroine would actually either defeat the demon or tame it or befriend it or in some way overcome that part of the obstacle. But the story didn't stop there.
Right.
Because there was still this impassable river. And it would turn out that the defeated demon would actually become the ally to help the hero across that impassable river. And through that, at the other side of the river, they would take stock of what have I gained, what new boons do I have that I can carry forward, and they would go on to the next journey. So now, somehow it started to strike me. You're on a quest means you've got a goal, trying to do something innovative. You come to the impassable river guarded by a demon. There's skepticisms, there's concerns, there's fears, there's still hopes and aspirations, but you don't know how you're going to handle this.
Well, sometimes the hopes and aspirations become attachments, and we've got to make this happen, and that can also be a barrier.
Right. And then you'd step back and you tap into character, tap into what is it that we have from the inside out to help us through this. And then in calling the demon out of the cave is like analyzing issues. Like, what is it that I'm really dealing with? What am I going to have to wrestle with here? And then generating the ideas was like the battle.
And sometimes it is like that.
Would this work?
What
Would
about
that
this?
work?
What about this? What about that?
Exactly, back and forth. Until at some point, the ideas become clear and the solution becomes clear out of all those possibilities. And this is the point in which the hero or the heroine in their journey would have defeated the demon.
Or befriended.
Or befriended or tamed it. But the story can't end with that kind of solution because there's still this impassable river called implementation.
I know that one well from managing IT.
And I saw that it's the quality of the decision and the quality of the solution and the quality of the involvement and cooperation in coming up with that solution that becomes the ally to get across that implementation chasm, that impassable river.
Creates that ownership that everyone is looking for when you involve people from the very beginning.
Exactly.
Through that quest and through that journey, they take ownership and they're ready for that implementation.
Right. And then on the other side, take stock of what have we achieved, but also what have we learned? What's the new knowledge to carry forward? This actually came from, at the same time period, my first client was a man named Frank Karuba at Hewlett-Packard Laboratories, head and director of the entire labs. And he talked about the importance of having stretch goals where you don't always know, in fact, you probably don't know that you're going to succeed. He says almost like, if I don't have 10% failure, I have not succeeded in stretching the organization.
Well, so he actually said something to you that you share with executives all the time that was very catching or very, really makes you stop and think. What he said to you was, William, if HP Labs, meaning their international R&D, if we are 100% successful with every goal we set, HP Labs is going to be in big trouble.
Not just HP Labs, the entire company.
The entire company will be
in big trouble. Because we'll lose our leadership edge at that point.
And we won't set. The only way you can be 100% successful is to set very safe goals.
Not to stretch.
Not to stretch. And when you're innovating, it's always some sort of a stretch. Again, the process can be used from very small things to very large things, but even small things, you're stretching. When you're innovating, you're doing something new, better, or different. And there's some sort of a stretch. But if you truly want to innovate across the organization, you've got to set those stretch goals.
And so in this discovery of the hero's journey, there was the missing elements from what I knew actually went on in the innovation process. And so if the original
either went on or needed to go on.
Well, then I was seeing it in successful projects I was running. This is what actually happened.
Right.
And so if the typical innovation process had, you set a goal, you analyze the issues, you generate ideas, you decide on a solution, you implement it. What was missing was, what is the upside downside consequences. What's the risk? What's our hopes and fears and aspirations and concerns?
That human side.
That human side that comes up immediately when we have a stretch goal. Right. And then the other next piece missing was tapping into character, the antidote, if you will, to the fear, which is what gives us the confidence that we can actually succeed even though we don't know how we're going to do it. Because I've found time and again that when that confidence was there, people's creative minds stretched out. When the confidence wasn't there, the ideas were very small.
Right.
And I could see that time and again. And finally, the missing piece was the celebration at the end, not just what some people call postmortems, which means after the death. A postmortem after the project,
Right.
But more of a celebration of what did we achieve and what did we learn that's going to be of value to us. And so this is how the BeThinkAct model really got developed and filled itself out.
Now, another thing that you were very aware of is that all of the academic and corporate models that you had studied, all of them were really specific to certain functions or specialties. So they, especially in the 90s, that was a time when corporations realized we've got to come out of the silos.
Right.
But the innovation processes were silos. That's one of the things you recognize. And you didn't work with silos even in the 80s.
Right.
You didn't work. You had to work cross-functionally and cross-culturally because you worked all with cultures all over the world.
Well, not only all over the world, but many times just a team, say within Hewlett-Packard, for example, is going to have 5 different cultures on the 8 people team.
Right. Motorola,
Yes.
they're all over the world, and some of your VP teams, vice president teams, had people from all over the world. So you recognized that the innovation process had to be a process, that people from all different disciplines, functions, even industries, even organizations, all different levels of the organization, because you've got to have everybody that needs to be involved, that's going to be impacted, they need to be involved. Something that could speak up and down and across as well.
This was why later on, IEEE in the USA, the Major Engineering Association, came to me and commissioned a book on this way of understanding the innovation process, because they saw that innovation process does have an art and a discipline, and that there is that, what we call the inhale and the exhale. There's a need to not just start with a new idea like so many models do and say, well, where do we go from there? What happens before that new idea?
Right.
They saw that there was a confidence curve, that innovation projects have an up and a down, and up and down. You get discouraged, you get elevated. How do you manage that? Well, that is that task 3. To help you stay even-keeled, even in the ups and downs, for example. So they asked for a book that would actually illustrate that.
Another reason that IEEE came to William to write that book was because the basis of the innovation process is human values. Human values we define as the qualities of good character that you find across all cultures and across time. It's those qualities of good character that are the best of who we are as human beings, and that we actually strive for to be at our best.
And that's where the legacy back to the hero's journey illustrated that this is something that is cross-cultural. It's a way of understanding the striving for something new, better, and different in a way that does cross the cultures, because all cultures have these kinds of stories in it. In a sense, in talking about stories, it really is, in a way, innovation can be seen as creating a story of the future. And this model, the BeThinkAct model, is really, in a sense, a storytelling model, where I have found, whether it's working with bus drivers in rural California, or with executives developing corporate strategy.
In Japan with senior leaders, it doesn't matter.
Everybody can tell a story using these tasks, using this model, to tell a story of a past time when they have been innovative in something they've done.
That reminds me of the very first workshop that I observed you delivering about the innovation process. And one of the first things that William did is he gave them an exercise, put them into pairs, and he used the 8 questions in past tense, had them think about a challenge that they had that they did not know how to solve or that they did not know how to address to be successful with, and had them tell a story about that particular experience that they had using the 8 questions. And I was so struck by the fact, first of all, the energy in the room just went, exponential, just the high energy. People love to tell stories, of course. But then when they reported out about their stories, it was just, I had never seen that before, where every person could tell a story about how they had been innovative. So at the end of that exercise, and they had reported out, and there was just such a sense of celebration in the room, William said to them, now, you've just told a past story about how you've been innovative, and how you've been innovative. Now, I'm going to teach you how to write the future story of how you're going to be innovative next. And they could really get it.
Yep. And so, in all of this, the early stage of actually then naming this model was, we called it the creative journey. There was creativity all the way through all the different tasks, but it was like a journey that people were on. And that journey could last for 2 hours or 2 months or 2 years, however we're going to be. And now we've recently migrated the name of the process model to BeThinkAct. BeThinkAct as the title, where to be is really to have the mindset, have the attitudes, have the perspectives that everyone can be innovative.
I can be innovative. Everyone can be innovative.
Everyone has their stories,
So see, the process itself, what we always knew, but wanted to name it a little bit more explicitly that way. The process is designed to support people who are engaged in the process to be innovative, to think innovatively all the way through all 8 tasks, and to act innovatively all the way through all 8 tasks. As we gained that awareness and we started using that language over the past years, and the more we used it, we realized, the innovation process itself is a BeThinkAct innovative model. And so we did decide to change it, although you'll see that we still love the term creative journey or innovative journey. You're on a journey. We still love that term, and we use it from time to time.
And this is a journey. It's a process that we've used in our consulting work with sales teams, whether it's with the IT or even harvester equipment, to plan their next activities. We've worked with product development engineers to be more innovative in their projects.
Purchasing agents to literally innovate the way that they do their work. We've used it in consulting, coaching, workshops, sessions, presentations. It's truly so flexible that it can be used in many ways.
We even used it recently in many different settings where people are developing their proposals for an innovative solution. But that the BeThinkAct model becomes the actual table of contents for the proposal itself, following from task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, showing the people reading the proposal exactly how that solution evolved, what was the inhale and what was the exhale.
And then the proposed implementation and the proposed measurements that you would have for both learning and achievement. It's an excellent framework for writing a proposal.
So we hope you see from all of this that there's a lot behind this model that may not be evident at first. And there's a depth that actually does tap into the deeper sense of who we are as human beings across cultures, that when we do this innovation process, it's like a micro journey to a larger journey that we take as people. You
can feel confident in using the innovation process, not only because it's well researched and well designed, but because of the experiential validity of its use over the last more than 2 decades and in many, many cultures and organizations around the world.